Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it is time for the Game Week 21 episode of the 100 Experts video. The video where we ask 100 FPL addicts, content creators, veterans, all of those kind of people, what they are doing with their weekly transfers. Who are they captaining? Are they using any chips this week? And we got, as usual, some very good data that's hopefully going to help us put together some trends and help us to decide what we need to do with our own fantasy teams using what the good FPL managers are doing. So guys, if you do enjoy this video, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here. We're going to hopefully find some answers to a lot of your guys' questions today. Alright, so this is the 100 names for 100 FPL people who have helped me out with providing their data for the video today. So massive shout out to all of these guys. If you go see any of their names around Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or anything like that, do make sure you go check them out because they're absolute legends and they're doing a massive favour by helping us guys out. So let's see what they have been up to or what they plan to be up to for Game Week 21. Alright, so 31% of them are making just one transfer, 6% are making 2 transfers, not a single one of them are making 3 or more transfers. 1 is using the wildcard, so just 1% using the wildcard. I know a lot of you guys are actually thinking about using the wildcard, but this data suggests that even though there is 1, that's not a trend. 1 is not a trend, so maybe this is not a good week for the wild card at all. So, you know, maybe, I don't know if you're thinking about it, maybe it's time to reconsider, unless your team is in big trouble. Obviously, then that does change things a little bit. We are going to be doing a wild card video later on in the week for you guys who are thinking of wild carding. But look, I'm just saying, the expert data suggests that it's probably not the game week to wild card, probably not. And we've got 62% here, which is probably, this is the most interesting of all of the stats for this video. 62% of our FPL experts are not making any transfer this week. And this is really, really unique. We very rarely see a number this high. In fact, I think since making this series, or starting this series a couple of years ago, 62% not making a transfer is the highest I have ever seen it. So if there was ever a game week to not make a transfer, it's probably going to be this week. And I know there's probably going to be a few, like, exceptions to this rule, and we're going to see some of the popular transfers in and out anyway, but it really should be noted, and I think that this is probably, I know we're very early in the video, but I think this is probably the biggest takeaway of the whole video. This is going to be terrible for retention. I know people are going to click off the whole video now, but look guys, the most important takeaway, if you don't need to make a transfer, don't make one. You know, if you're feeling that your transfer is luxury, do not make that transfer. Do not waste a transfer. And I feel like going into game week at 22, we're going to have double game weeks. We're going to have information about more double game weeks. We're going to have information about more blank game weeks as well. Game week 22, we're going to get so much information. Information is power, as I always say. And going into 22 with 2 free transfers, I think could be a massive, massive advantage for a lot of people. So, just saying that, just putting it out there. And the experts are kind of feeling this way too. Maybe this is not the week to make a transfer, but if you really feel like you want to, I guess we'll get on with that stuff. Alright, so first of all, as always, we look at the most popular Game Week 21 transfers in the world among all FPL managers. We've got some kind of players that are highly being transferred in, and then it kind of drops off a lot. So obviously we've got Tony, super, super popular this week. Odegaard up there as well, along with March and Rashford. Then we've kind of got Luke Shaw as a reasonably popular player there to go for among our overall FPL player base. And then we've got a big drop-off. You know, Kane, Cher, Pope, Mitoma, me, Saka, De Bruyne. These players are not really that popular. It seems like not that many people are making transfers outside kind of the top 5 players you see there. So maybe these top 5 players are really the key players that we need to get, and kind of all of the other players are kind of secondary in a way. But we need to see if there's any correlation between this and our experts. Do our experts agree with these overall transfer trends? Well, I can tell you there's a little bit. There's a little bit of a little bit of correlation. Tony, Odegaard, Marsh, and Mitoma are all highly transferred in among our experts as well. So these are the popular players among experts and among the overall player base. Obviously, we usually see the top few players, you know, also popular with experts as well as, you know, in general. But we have got Mitoma there, interestingly, as well, who is slightly further down the list and maybe a little bit of a differential. And not a lot of the kind of more casual FPL players are going to go for a player like Mitoma. They are going to be preferring a player like March. We're going to go through the March versus Mitoma kind of data very shortly. So we're going going to talk about, you know, who's more popular shortly. But for now, look, that's what you're seeing right there. There is some players on here that are being transferred in by none of our experts. So none of our experts like the following players: Rashford, Cher, Pope, and Saka. None of those players are being transferred in this week. You can kind of understand Rashford. A lot of our experts are going to have him already. And even if they don't, is the Arsenal game the game week where you would desperately need to get Rashford? You would say that if there's one game week where you can maybe afford to wait one more week, it is this week. You know, if it's either now or never, right? But I would still say that Rashford is a pretty important player to have. We've got players like Cher. You know, Botman is obviously the expert's pick. Cher versus Botman. Botman always comes out on top because he's so much cheaper and provides pretty much the same thing, if not slightly more. Pope there, goalkeeper transfers are just not very popular among experts. Experts don't tend to move their goalkeeper around very often. And Saka, you know, worse stats than kind of Ødegaard, worse stats than Martinelli. So why would you not just go for Ødegaard? It doesn't really make sense to go for a Saka when you can go for Ødegaard because he is a better FPL asset for a cheaper price. Everyone wins. So yeah, that's the overall most popular players to be bringing in. But what are our experts saying? Well, let's see who they're transferring out first and foremost. And Andreas Pereira is taking the top spot. Did you see that one coming? Probably not. But Andreas is kind of a player who you're probably not going to play very often. Fulham have got some pretty bad fixtures. He's just going to be wasting away on your bench. And maybe there's some other cheap midfielders that you can move him to. You guys already know where I'm going with this one. So he is the most popular transfer out with 10 transfers out. We have got some others here. Almiron, a few people taking him out. His numbers have just dropped off a cliff right now. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of thinking Almiron is probably not a player we want to be going with moving forward. Few people worried about Martial's injury status, so they're transferring him out. Cucurella is kind of an understandable transfer out as well because he's not even nailed on in a Chelsea team that aren't filling us with confidence defensively or attackingly, I suppose, either. And there's a couple of other random players in there that just kind of have 2 transfers out of 100. Not very high numbers though. Kepa, Cancelo, Patterson, Fernandes. Wouldn't really read into these ones too much, to be honest, because it's just such a small amount of people transferring these players out. It's really kind of insignificant in terms of looking for trends. But certainly Andreas transfer out is a trend. Almiron is the beginning of a trend as well. You could possibly say the same about Martial and Cucurella. After that, these are players that you probably may as well just keep, to be honest. In terms of most popular transfers in, we have got Ødegaard leading the line, and that's not totally surprising, really. I mean, I know Tony is the most popular player overall, but you can see why FPL Experts watching, keeping a close eye on Arsenal, acknowledging that Arsenal have a double game week coming up as well, and are excited about that, and excited about Arsenal not getting a blank game week in 25, where some other players, such as Tony, are quite likely to blank in 25. This kind of forward thinking, looking for the double, looking for the good fixtures, looking for the guaranteed fixtures. A lot of our minds are going to go for Ødegaard, right? If we know our FPL stuff, we're going to be going for players like Ødegaard. So he is number 1, 10 transfers in, reasonably popular. And typically going back, he's not been that popular among experts because a lot of our experts have been kind of on Martinelli and not anyone else. And whilst I mentioned Martinelli, you will notice that nobody's transferring out Martinelli. So I know a lot of you guys are going to say, should I transfer out Martinelli for Ødegaard? None of our experts are making that move, and I'm sure all of them would agree with me when I say that is a very sideways transfer. Martinelli's stats are really not that bad. They're not that much worse than Ødegaard. Martinelli has blanked 2 games in a row. Fair enough, but that is going to happen to some players sometimes. In fact, Haaland, as at time of recording, has also blanked in his last 2 Premier League games, and we're not thinking about selling him or swapping him for a Harry Kane, for example, are we? We're sticking with what we got. So I would advise the same. I would say Martinelli is still a good player to have. If you want to add Ødegaard into your team, I wouldn't be replacing Martinelli. I would be replacing one of your other midfielders to get him in anyway. And I feel like if your only route to getting Ødegaard is moving Martinelli out, I would probably just save your transfer. This is a difficult game against Manchester United, and then you could do the double transfer next game week and kind of maybe free up some budget somewhere else and restructure a little bit in order to get Ødegaard in. That's the way I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to be doing personally. But if you can afford to easily do it this game week, we'll make some suggested transfers on how you might get Ødegaard in. But yeah, there are some other ways of getting Ødegaard in that don't involve removing Martinelli, and I think that's probably the expert way to keep Martinelli and get Ødegaard in as an additional player, right? We've got Mitoma here, so yeah, you guys have been asking me like crazy, Mitoma or March, and I've pretty much given you the answer in every single video and said, Look, I prefer Mitoma. His underlying numbers are better and he looks better on the pitch. March has been a little bit fortunate in the way that he's getting his returns. He's been in fantastic form and March is a very, very good player as well. So I'm not discrediting March. I'm saying they're both amazing. But Mitoma, when I watch him play and when I look at the numbers, Mitoma, it looks like going forward, he is going to get more attacking returns. He looks like he's got potential for more points. And I want to kind of duplicate that and try and emphasize this because I know people keep asking me, Mitoma or March, which one should I go for? Mitoma is my personal favourite. I said that in yesterday's video. He is also the experts' favourite. 8 transfers in compared to 5. So experts prefer Mitoma as well. And here is a Japan shirt as well that I am wearing right now. So if it's not completely obvious by now, if you are asking me personally, if you are asking the people who very kindly volunteered their data for this video, then your answer is Mitoma. That does not mean that March is a bad pick. It does not mean that we know for sure that Mitoma is going to outscore March. It just means that looking forward, looking at the numbers, looking at the players, we do slightly prefer Mitoma to March. So if you want the answer to that question, there you have it. We also got Botman here, so if you're looking for a defender to bring in, he's the most popular player in. I know people will be saying, what about game week 25 where Newcastle might blank? It doesn't matter. Newcastle are probably going to keep 4 clean sheets out of 4 over the next 4 game weeks, so he'll more than make up for the fact that you're probably going to have to transfer him out in 25, to be honest. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Similar thing with Tony. He'll probably score so many points over the next few game weeks that even if you have to transfer him out in 25 or bench him in 25, it doesn't matter. He'll make it worth your while. Ben White's kind of popular here as well. Very good Arsenal defence that he's playing for right now. And double game week coming up as well. And Rodrigo, a little bonus mention for Rodrigo for Leeds, who may get a double game week next game week as well. So just something to be considering. Maybe we get a double game week 22 from Rodrigo. So I think that's why a few people have kind of been having a little look at him as well. So they're the most popular transfers in. Let's suggest some transfers for you guys to do at home. So, first of all, Brighton midfielders, and a lot of my experts, kind of when I was kind of asking them and speaking to them, and when they were kind of telling me their information, a lot of them were saying that even the ones that were rolling their transfers, they were still saying the same things over and over again. Yes, I'm going to roll my transfer, but even if I don't end up rolling my transfer, if I end up using a transfer, it will be to get a Brighton midfielder in. I'm really tempted by the 2 Brighton midfielders, Mitoma and March. And a lot of the way people are doing this is going Andreas to Mitoma or March. So that would be my first suggestion. Obviously, Mitoma is the priority one. But if you prefer March for whatever reason, that is absolutely fine too. And again, don't worry too much about them blanking in 25. They've got great fixtures in the short term. So I think they'll be able to score a decent amount of points. And they're so cheap as well. All you're doing is replacing a bench player with a player who you will also be able to bench in game week 25. So I think overall, it's actually not such a bad thing. I think that's absolutely fine as well. You can also do Almiron to Mitoma if you don't have money in the bank for whatever reason, or you don't really like Almiron right now, and a few of our experts are moving him on. That's another way of getting Mitoma into your team. We should mention a way to get an Ødegaard, and the most popular method of getting Ødegaard into your team, according to experts, is by removing Almiron. But I also did see people removing both Mason Mount and Mahrez I saw as well. A couple of other kind of midfielders that haven't quite been doing it for you guys, that people are kind of not fully confident in. Don't really want to go with moving forward. Those are the kind of midfielders you could maybe replace, with Ødegaard. I know most of you guys are going to have Almiron, but I know a few of you guys are going to have some random midfielder in your team that you're not too happy with. And if that's the case, that's the kind of player to remove for Ødegaard, not Martinelli. Cucurella to Botman. If you've got Cucurella in your team, if you've got Cancelo in your team, if you've got a midfielder that you don't like, defender, sorry, that you don't like in your team, and you're looking for that defensive replacement, go for Botman, even if it means throwing a bunch of money in your bank. I wouldn't worry about it. This is a player who's going to get a lot of clean sheets over the next 4 game weeks. And finally, we've got Martial here for Tony. If you're looking to get Tony into your team, you're not confident about Martial's fitness, then you could potentially do this move as well. I don't like this personally, though. If I had Martial right now and he is proven to be fit for game week 21, then I would definitely be keeping Martial, particularly looking at game week 22 as a potential double. So I put this on screen as an expert move, but it's not something I'm too happy with endorsing personally. I think I would rather keep Martial than make that move. I'm not saying Tony's a bad pick, because he's a good pick, and I've even got him in my own team, but still, I would rather have Martial for that double game week 22, I think. And finally, the captaincy. Gameweek 21 captain. What a surprise. Once again, as always, we see Erling Haaland right at the tippy top. 91% captaincy rate this week with a couple of differentials off there as well. Harry Kane is the second most popular pick. 5%. He's got a game against Fulham, which is actually not too bad. Not too bad of a fixture. And Kane is actually been playing pretty well since the break and pretty well all season, and I don't think anyone's doubting Harry Kane too much. You know, he's a good pick. We kind of know that, but is he a good enough pick that we are confident enough to captain him over the likes of Erling Haaland? That's kind of up to you, but he is a little bit of a differential there, but with 5%, you have to say that there may be something in that. So if you're feeling risky, Kane is your guy. We've got Trippier coming up as a captaincy option. We've not really seen too much of him in terms of high captaincy percentages over this season of the Experts video, but you know what? Trippier has been scoring well every single game week. You know, if you just want to make sure your captain doesn't blank, then Trippier is probably the answer to that, because Trippier seems to be immune from blanking, always gets clean sheet, always gets bonus points, even if he doesn't get an attack in return. So absolute madness there. And a couple of people going for Tony as well, an interesting one versus Leeds. Tony's obviously been in very good form, he's on penalties, and he's playing a fairly weak defence in Leeds United. So yeah, a couple of other options there, but once again, if you just want the answer of who is the best captain, well, it's a boring one again, I'm afraid, guys, because the answer is very, very clearly Erling Haaland. Alright, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. I appreciate that maybe this hasn't been like the best ever episode of 100 Experts, but I like to keep things consistent, keep things going. But yeah, it's not been the best episode. I'm not going to lie. There has not been as many transfer moves and shakings up as maybe in some other weeks. It's just not really a game week for transfers, really, and I completely understand if you guys kind of, you know, thinking of just chilling out and maybe not making a transfer this week. That would be totally understandable, but I'd like to get the content out anyway. Do subscribe if you're new around here as well. Hopefully we'll have a more interesting Experts video next week. As for tomorrow, I'm going to be doing my personal team selection, so maybe that's of interest to you, and we'll be doing a wildcard video on Friday as well. But for today, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching, guys, once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.